Okay, so there's a quote from Ben Franklin that is so apt here, and it is the rotten apple spoils his companion. It was from his Poor Richard's Almanac, and it is so true that one bad apple, that one person can just ruin the entire place. I've experienced it. I've had to deal with narcissists as bosses in my past, as clients, as coworkers, as employees of mine. And in whatever form they come in, they, excuse my French, but they completely suck in every single way. And so I want to help you with that because I've been there, and as Ben Franklin says, one person can just ruin it for everyone. And you can just feel it, like as you're walking into the office sometimes, or into the building. And a lot of times now with COVID, things have changed. But if you're even having to get on a Zoom call with this person, I mean, you can just feel like that tension. You feel it in your body, you feel it in your gut, you feel it in your bones and your cells, and you just don't even want to be around that person. You don't trust that person, and it just really can like ruin it for everyone. So the one thing I do want to say is that whatever form they come in, they engage in the same types of behavior that narcissists engage in with regard to whatever relationship that they're in. So if it starts off with that idealization phase, that love bombing phase, where they come across as perfect, they're super charismatic, they're very smart. They're leaders a lot of times. So they just seem to be like the perfect type of a person. And then they go into that devaluing phase and then the discard phase, the same way all narcissists do. But during that devalue phase, this is where you're going to start to see some stuff going on in the workplace that just drives you crazy, like projection. I mean, that's something I saw in one of my employees. Whenever she messed up, it was always someone else's fault. She could never take responsibility for herself. Lying, they lie and then they deny or they deflect. And if you want to know more about what happens when you catch a narcissist in a lie, definitely check out my video on that topic. And they also engage in complaining. I saw that actually a lot of times myself. One employee would start complaining about something because she was envious, or she was jealous, or she felt like somebody else got special treatment. And they live in this world that it's not fair, it's not fair, and no matter how much you give them, it's still not fair, because that's their way of being. Or sometimes they're jealous of something that another employee has, and then they start bad mouthing, and they start spreading rumors, maybe even about that person. They might just plant a seed, like with a boss, and say, oh, I saw that so and so came in late, or I saw that so and so is talking to some other employer or something. It may not even be true, but they start spreading these rumors. And if one person feels like, oh, how come we don't get so much time off? Or, then everybody starts to, jump on that bandwagon. Or if you have one boss who's just like so mean to everybody, and or maybe they're misogynistic, or maybe they're racist, or maybe they're, whatever it is, but they devalue people. And so what you see is there's this sense of entitlement. I just deserve to have it. I should have it. I need special treatment, which is all part of the narcissism 7 deadly sins, which you can see in my video, the narcissist 7 deadly sins, as well. And if you think that they just think that they are so entitled, give me a so entitled in the comments below. So, and then when they start that smear campaign in the discard phase, which is typical of all narcissists, I mean, now maybe they're taking it out, even outside of work. Maybe they're smearing you as an employee, as a boss, as a coworker, and they're telling everybody how awful you are. And I've seen this in many, many different contexts. I've coached C-level executives. I've coached business partners who are breaking up, and now the business partner or the other executives are telling people things that aren't true. You're difficult. And so it can be very, very difficult to deal with. So what do you do about it? Number one is, if they are your employee, definitely fire them. I made the mistake of, just thinking that it would get better, or thinking that if I gave this person enough, that they would be, better, that they would be appreciative, but it just gets worse and worse and worse. It's sort of like, you're dealing with a 2-year-old in an adult body, basically. So if you indulge a child too much, they actually start demanding more and more and more. And that's what happens with narcissistic employees. So no matter who they are, no matter how skilled they are replaceable. You will be better off getting somebody else who actually has less skills, but is super appreciative and actually cares and has integrity. I promise you. So if you have control over the situation where you can actually fire this person, definitely go ahead and do that. If it is your boss, I would suggest that you try to go find a different job if you possibly can, because these people don't get better. It doesn't get better, it only gets worse. If that's the path that you're going to take, though, make sure that they have no idea that that is what you're doing. Continue your adulation, continue whatever level of supply you need to give them, because you don't want them suspecting, because then, remember, with a narcissist, you're either for them or against them. And if you're against them, then you become public enemy number one. So, just start quietly looking for another job. And, and at the time that you need to move on, you just move on. If it is a coworker, what I would say to you is, stay in your lane, create your boundaries. Don't take the bait. Like, if they want to talk to you, if they want to get involved with, smearing other people or gossiping or anything like that, just, don't take the bait. Don't get involved with that. I will say to you, cream always rises to the top. So, your integrity will prevail eventually. If you are doing a great job, if you are staying in your lane and you're not getting involved with it, your bosses will see that eventually, and it will pay off for you. Whatever job you have, do a fantastic job with it, and your bosses will see. I know I've had lots of employees, and I definitely can tell which ones have integrity and which ones don't. And that gets rewarded. So stay aware and alert. Smack them down if you need to. I will say this, if you snuff them out and you call out their bluffing, I call it snuffing out the bluffing, and you actually kind of stand up to the narcissist, they'll back down, because narcissists are actually very scared inside. They are a little bit afraid of people who are strong. So just stand up to them and just say, I'm not going to have this conversation with you. I hope you have a great day. But, if you stand up to them a little bit, they'll be a little bit nervous if it's your coworker. And then, as I say with every narcissist, if you can go no contact, go no contact, because that will be the best thing for you. They do get in your head. They do start to, um, cause this drama, trauma, and chaos. And if there's a way that you can get them out of your life, then you should definitely go ahead and do that. All right, so let's learn about narcissists in this video and how they teach you about who they are from their body language. So, did you know that what we say is actually only 7% of our communication? That's right. Tone of voice is actually 38% of our communication, and body language is the other 55% of what we actually say. So when we are expressing ourselves, more than half of what we say is coming from body language. So that means when we are listening or watching narcissists, they're saying a lot from their body language. All right, so I've got 6 telltale signs. So grab your notepad, grab your pen. You are not going to want to miss out on these 6 telltale signs. And I'm going to do them in reverse order from number 6 to number 1 so that you stay tuned all the way till the end. Ready? Let's go. Number 6. Number 6 is they have trouble making eye contact with people. They don't look up. They don't look at you. They have trouble while they're talking to you actually looking at you. Now, I know that a lot of you are from other cultures. Sometimes this is a cultural thing. So you do have to take into account different cultures. Sometimes it's actually disrespectful to look at people in the eye, depending on the culture that they're in. So do take that into account as well. Sometimes people are fearful of others as well. So you do have to kind of look at this as a whole before all the haters come rushing in. Just make sure that you do understand that you do have to look at this as a whole. Okay. So that's number 6. You ready for number 5? All right. Number 5 is that they're just not interested in new people in general. They just, they kind of like disinterested in even meeting new people. And they can't get themselves to like get up off the couch. They can't get themselves to come over unless the person can do something for them. Then maybe they're animated, right? They're in a situation where maybe a new person comes into the room, or maybe they come into the room and there's other people there that they haven't met before, and they just really don't want to meet new people unless, maybe they can do something for them. And again, you have to kind of take all of these as a whole, because of course there are people out there that might have social anxiety or, have other issues, right? But this is just kind of taken together. Got it? Okay. So that's number 5. Number 4. Number 4 is much more subtle. Number 4 is just that silent resentment. And I've been there. I have felt this. There's this silent resentment when their target, that person that they're with, that person, it might be your spouse, it might be your business partner, it might be that person, but the one who's like that target, the person that they're dealing with right now, it's probably you who's watching because you're the one who's watching, is interacting with other people. So you are in a social situation and you're enjoying yourself and you're feeling that silent resentment. They are so upset with you because you're having fun, because you're talking to other people. They cannot stand the fact that you are interacting with others. You know that later on you're going to pay for it. And this is the kind of thing that they do like at holidays, especially. And by the way, I have a whole video on why narcissists ruin holidays. And if you want to check that out, you can definitely check that out, because, this is like one of the things, and you just kind of feel that underlying sort of seething. And you might get like these little like quips, you might get these little like comments, these little like subtle devaluing, like, oh, why do you got to go do and say that? Or how come you're eating that way? Or why do you look like that? Who are you talking to? Or they don't want to hear about that. There's like these little things that are happening. And so that you feel this silent sort of resentment, going on there. Okay. So that's number 4. You ready for the next one? All right. So the next one is that they're just like closed off, right? They're just closed off, maybe like folded arms, maybe like sitting away from others. Maybe they're like facing the door. They're just like disinterested, to show others that, they're not interested in you. I mean, a lot of times, by the way, if you want to know if an agreement is going to stick, you should look to see how somebody is facing, because if they're looking at you, but they're facing toward the door, they're not necessarily engaged with you. They might be kind of half out the door. They might be sort of like not really actually committing to whatever it is that they may even be saying that they're committing to. And then down the road, you might find that that agreement didn't actually hold together and didn't actually stick. And you're wondering why, because they said that they would. And that's why, because you didn't read the body language. You didn't know to read the body language that they weren't actually sticking. So if you see that they're closed off, or you see that they're sitting and facing away like that, that might show that they're kind of narcissistic or not actually engaged in the situation. Okay. So that's the next one. And if I'm on track so far and you've seen some of these, give me an on track in the comments below. All right. Next one is, I know you guys have seen this too. I have definitely seen this from narcissistic people. They actually ask you a question, like you're in a social situation, and they say, oh, how did you come to have this happen to you? Or how is it going with your business or whatever? And you start to answer them, and then they don't even listen for your answer. You're halfway through the sentence and they're like off, doing something else, or they see someone else. They don't even say, excuse me. They leave, they start looking at their phone, and they're not engaged. Like they don't even care enough to hear the rest of what you're saying. And, maybe a better source of supply came along or whatever. And there you are. You're just sort of like, oh yeah, well, never mind then. That's, another one. Like they're just kind of like inconsiderate. Especially if a better source of supply comes along. So that's the next one. And if you want to know what number one is, you got to make sure you stick with it. Ready? Ready for number one? Okay. Number one is they often have more of a distance. They keep a distance. They actually have more physical proximity than others do in conversation. And again, sort of like the trouble with making eye contact, you do want to take into account different countries, different cultures, because obviously certain cultures stand closer than others. So you do want to think about that. But if you are in the same culture and you kind of know what the social norms are in your particular culture, narcissistic people do tend to stand a little further away from each other than other people do. So those are some telltale signs of narcissistic body language. Okay, so 11 ways to recognize a covert narcissist. I personally have had to deal with 2 covert narcissists who have targeted me in my personal life, and they are the worst, the absolute worst. Let me tell you, I think they're the worst because you can't spot them very easily. The grandiose narcissists are the ones that are out there bragging all the time. They're the ones telling you, oh, I'm so great, blah, blah, blah. The covert narcissists are the ones that look so kind and so sweet, and everybody thinks they're so wonderful. And so they save themselves for their actual target. And the things that they do are so under the radar that when you go to tell people about it, people are like, well, that doesn't seem so bad. Or I don't know, maybe that was so inadvertent, because they're really so nice. So when I was dealing with them, it actually makes you even seem more crazy, because people are looking at you like, I don't know. I mean, that doesn't seem so bad. And it's absolutely maddening. It literally is like death by 1,000 cuts, or like that water dripping on your head. And you really do feel like you're going crazy. So it's absolutely horrible. So one of the ways, I'm going to go through 11 ways to recognize a covert narcissist. By the time we're done here, you're going to really know whether or not you're dealing with a covert narcissist in your life. So the first way that you can recognize a covert narcissist is that they are passive aggressive. And what I mean by that is that they don't right in your face do things. So, for example, they'll say that they're going to do something and then they just don't do it. And you're like wondering why they didn't do it. And you kind of ask them about it. And they'll just sort of not have a conversation with you about it, or it just doesn't come up, or they say that they're going to ask about it and then they just don't. And then you find yourself, should I bring it up or should I not? Or they will just put their names on things and then you wonder why they did that. And you have to kind of have a conversation about it. They're not aggressive to your face. They do things where you're kind of feeling, especially if you are a good person, a kind person, where you find yourself, should I bring it up? Should I not bring it up? And it's very frustrating, very maddening. So that's number one, they're passive aggressive. Number two is that they are subtly competitive. So, you notice that they got something better than you, or they'll say, they're sicker than you, or they have something that whatever you have, they have more, they have better, but it's always sort of with a smile. And it's always like this undercurrent of it. It's not enough to really say something about, but there's always sort of this undercurrent. But to your face, they're so nice to you all the time. But there's this undercurrent of this feeling. But yet you are kind of wondering, is there something going on? Because to your face, they're so nice to you all the time. So that's number two. Number three is withholding. They withhold things from you. They don't tell you about something that you're wondering about information. They don't tell you information. And then all of a sudden you're like, why didn't they tell me about that? And it's like weird things too, something that might have even sort of benefited the business, for example, like that really could have benefited both of you, but they just are so subtly competitive that they just don't want you to even have it either. So withholding information, withholding anything that could potentially benefit you. They're such in scarcity mentality, scarcity mode all of the time that they're withholding information or anything that could potentially benefit you or information that you might want to have, they just don't tell you. So withholding, that's number three way that you could recognize a covert narcissist or a sign of a covert narcissist. Number four way that you can recognize a covert narcissist is that they're extremely insecure. And here's the thing that's kind of interesting about a covert narcissist is that they may even tell you that they're insecure. They may even tell you about the way they feel about things because they do tend to be sort of downtrodden. They may even tell you that life has dealt them a bad hand, that life isn't fair to them. Sometimes with covert narcissists, they will tell you that life hasn't been good to them or something like that, because sometimes they do sort of have a victim mentality about them because they do sort of play on people's guilt. Sometimes you'll see that with covert narcissists as well. So that's number four. Number five is they are often prone to depression or anxiety. And you will often hear them say that. The couple of covert narcissists that I have had to deal with, they actually straight up said, I've had to deal with depression. I have a therapist. And, they'll tell you, I've had to deal with that. But, again, sometimes they're playing on your sympathies. and they're playing on them being a victim or something like that. So that is another way that you can recognize a covert narcissist. Number 6 way that you can recognize a covert narcissist is that they often have grandiose fantasies. In fact, one of the covert narcissists that I used to have to deal with would say she wanted to dominate the world or something like that. It wasn't about helping people necessarily, it was about world domination. But yet she wasn't really prepared to do the work to have world domination. She really just wanted to like attach herself to people who were going to do the work. Because a lot of times you'll see that narcissists are inherently lazy. They really don't want to do the work. And, again, that's sort of the passive aggressive, going back to the number 1 sign of a covert narcissist. A lot of times they'll say that they're going to do something and then they just don't do the work. And that was one of the things that I saw in the covert narcissist that I was dealing with, is that they would say that they were going to do the work and then they would not do the work. And then, you would ask them about it and they would just, lie about it and say they were working on it and then they weren't working on it or something like that. And it's sort of like this passive aggressive thing, like you can't tell me what to do kind of a thing. And that was, sort of the passive aggressive thing. But that's number 6 sign or way to recognize a covert narcissist is these grandiose fantasies that they have, which is really part of any sort of narcissist. Because remember that even though they are covert narcissists, they are in fact narcissists, which, all narcissists have these grandiose fantasies about themselves. And by the way, if you want to know more about how covert narcissists interact in relationships, I do have a whole video on covert narcissism in relationships, which I highly recommend that you definitely check out. And they are definitely so sneaky. It's just so sick and so gross and so difficult to deal with. I mean, it really, really makes you crazy and makes you feel like you're crazy. It really does eventually suck the life out of you and makes you feel like you're going nuts. And I remember feeling like, oh, like this person is a leech. Like I felt like it was like a leech, like literally draining the life out of me. This is before I had the term energy vampire in my vernacular. Like I didn't even know that term before, I used to say leech, So, I mean, if you agree with me, like they're just like total energy vampires, just put energy vampire in the comments, because they're just total energy vampires. All right. So that's number 6. Number 7 is they have a tendency to definitely hold grudges. I mean, they hold grudges forever. I mean, it's just because they have no sense of self, just the same as all narcissists. They just don't have that sense of self. And, when you don't have a sense of self, you definitely have a tendency to hold grudges because you don't have that sense of self. So, you want to get all of your value from external sources like that. So that's the number 7 way to recognize a covert narcissist. The 8th way that you can recognize a covert narcissist is that you are envious or jealous. When I was dealing with a covert narcissist is, when something good would happen with me, I got a really great television gig or something like that, then the covert narcissists in my life would be like, oh, that's so great for you. Like you could definitely tell like they weren't happy for me. They outwardly pretend to be happy. They try to be happy, but they're really not, because they're just so jealous. They're so envious. But they try to be outwardly happy, but they're really secretly very, very envious, very, very jealous people. So that's the 8th way that you can recognize a covert narcissist. The 9th way that you can recognize a covert narcissist is fake empathy. So one of the things that they do is they just show up wherever empathy can be shown up. So one of the things that I would see with some covert narcissists that I was dealing with is that, if somebody were sick, they would just show up there right in the middle of things with, the baskets of food or whatever, because there is an opportunity to get attention for themselves and look at me, look at how wonderful I am. This opportunity to show what a great person I am. And the person who can sit right at the bedside and be right in the middle of it and demonstrate that I am such a wonderful person and everybody else is so not a wonderful person. It's sort of this fake empathy, though, because if there's not a show about it, if there's nobody to be seeing this person displaying all the empathy, then they don't bother. So it's only if there are certain people around to actually see them displaying this particular empathy, and only if it will serve them in certain circles. It's definitely strategic in nature. So it's kind of fake empathy, and it's very much strategic or tactical when needed. So fake empathy is the 9th way that you can recognize a covert narcissist. Number 10 way that you can recognize a covert narcissist is gaslighting. Gaslighting is definitely a personal favorite of all narcissists, but I think that covert narcissists are actually even better at it than any narcissist, frankly. I would see this especially with the covert narcissists that I dealt with, frankly, because they would be particularly good at spinning yarns. They take shreds of truth or kernels of truth and spin it into, well, we talked about that. Don't you remember? Like they would take little pieces of it and then spin it into whatever they would want it to be. So, go and do whatever it is that they would want to do. And you'd be over there going, what the hell do you think you're doing? And they would be like, oh, well, we talked about that. We never talked about you doing that. But they would take like a little piece of what you talked about and then go and do whatever they wanted. And then they would refer back to it. They would take the piece of it that they would want and refer back to it and do whatever they wanted with that little piece of what you talked about. But, make it seem like you had talked about that whole entire part, but that you didn't. So that's gaslighting. They're really, really good at it. And because they seem to the rest of the world as such good people, so kind, oh my goodness, but look at what they did for this person who had cancer. They stood by their side and they did all these things. So to the rest of the world, since they're so nice and they're so kind, they kind of get away with a whole lot more. It's so maddening in a lot of ways. So that's number 10 is gaslighting. And number 11 is their flying monkeys. They love their flying monkeys. They love to use those flying monkeys. So flying monkeys are third parties that they use to line up as their like army of people to have them on their side, to let you think that these people believe their lies, believe their agendas, believe that everyone else is thinking what they think, everyone else thinks that they're wonderful, that you're not, that you feel more isolated, more alone. It's really a form of bullying in a way. But here's the thing that I do remind people about flying monkeys, and that is that a lot of times the flying monkeys really don't even realize that they're being lined up against you. They're being love bombed by that person as well. They're being charmed by that person. They don't know what's going on. They don't realize that that person has this agenda. They just think that person is nice. They're not in the inner circle a lot of times, and they don't see what's happening. They're not being necessarily targeted by that person. So they don't see that passive aggression. They don't necessarily see that subtle competition. They don't see the covert narcissism in that person a lot of times. They just see the good side a lot of times. So it's kind of hard to tell a lot of times if that flying monkey or those flying monkeys actually know what's going on. I don't know. But the best thing for you to do is get the hell out of there and never look back. That's for sure. Yeah. The reason I am on this mission is because I have had to deal with covert narcissists, the subject of today's video. I've had to deal with them in a business setting, one of them in a business setting and one in my extended family. I had never even heard the term covert narcissist before until somebody pointed it out to me. And I remember when we were having this conversation, the person who pointed it out to us pointed it out to my husband and me first, and they were like, oh, that person, that family member that you're dealing with is a covert narcissist. And I remember I was like, covert narcissist, I never even heard that term before, but I remember thinking, oh, I don't think she's a narcissist. I mean, a narcissist to me was like a boastful, bragging, super egotistical, usually a male. Like to me, it was always a male. I mean, it had never occurred to me, number one, that a narcissist could be a female. And by the way, the person who was calling this person a narcissist happened to be a psychologist. I was like, I don't think she's a narcissist. Pretty sure she's just like really insecure. And he was like, okay, you know what? Let it be a hypothesis. And if I'm wrong, I guess you'll know it. And if I'm right, you'll know it too. The facts and circumstances will bear it out. And of course, he was 100% right. But as time went on and I started to read and learn much more about it, I started to really figure it out. And so, there's so much that goes into a covert narcissist. But, my hypothesis is that I think women do tend to be more the covert kind because women want to be more under the radar. They tend to want to be, they want to look nice. They want to look kind. I mean, but I don't know. I think that there are a lot of male covert narcissists too. They're the ones that nobody suspects. Like the world thinks that they're so fantastic. They're so charismatic. The world thinks they're wonderful. So anyway, here are some strange behaviors of covert narcissists. I mean, number one is that they're super passive aggressive. Their words do not match their actions. So they're like super kind and absolutely, I will do that for you. Absolutely. I will get right back to you on that. And then you don't hear from them. Or, I definitely want to make sure that you were taken care of. And then they don't. And so you're left like so confused all the time. And do I force them on that? Do I ask them about that? And does this make me a bad person because they're so nice? And then here you are, the one like, am I being passive aggressive? Am I being the one that's a problem? It seems very strange because they seem so nice. So it's kind of a strange behavior because they seem so nice, but it's actually not strange if you get to know who they are as a covert narcissist. So that's number one. Number two is they value the opinions of strangers over family. I mean, and this is something that my husband and I have seen it with the covert narcissist that we've had to deal with in our family situation. This particular person, who shall not be named, definitely values the opinions of strangers over family. It can be painful unless you realize and just accept that that's who they are, that they are narcissists, and that's what narcissists do. They are seeking that external praise. They're seeking that narcissistic supply. And that's the very strange thing about narcissists. They kind of take for granted the opinions or the supply that they're getting within their inner circle. They don't really care about the supply that they already have. That's just sort of a given. They want the supply that they're getting externally. For some reason, that means more to them than the supply or the validation that they can get from the people who actually love them, from the people who actually care about them or actually value them. They prefer to get it from other people that they don't even know. But that's how it is. It doesn't really make any sense, but that is very strange. And so that's number two. Number three, and I will never really get over number three, to be honest with you. Both of the covert narcissists that I had to deal with did this with me, and I found it very odd, very weird, very super creepy. And that is that they stare at you. I actually did a whole video on this just because I really couldn't stand it. My whole video was called Why the Narcissist is Always Watching You. Both of the narcissists I had to deal with, I would find would be staring at me, watching me. They stalk your social media, they check out what you're doing. I would find that they would copy me, watch what I was wearing, copy that. And some people would be who don't understand narcissism, they'd be like, oh, but that's so flattering, that's so nice that they would want to be like you or something. But no, those of you who understand narcissism, that it's not flattering. It's the creepy kind. Actually, recently I had dinner with another couple who happened to let me know that one of the narcissists that I had to deal with, that I've completely cut out of my life, not the family member one, but the other one, let me know that there was some buddy who was in touch with somebody else, that sort of like this fringe sort of in touch, that there's that narcissist that's still trying to poke their head through to try to get through the boundaries that I've created. I mean, very sad. But from my own growth perspective, I was like, you know what? I don't really feel any emotion about it. So it was actually good. It was like a little test for me, because when I heard about it, I was like, that is so pathetic. I actually found myself feeling like nothing. So I was glad about that. So that's number three. Number four is they're super weird about gift giving. They kind of don't really want to give gifts. They oh, here you go. And there's ties against it. They don't really like to give gifts. I do have a video on that too, by the way, if you want to check it out. But narcissists, there's always strings. They don't like to give gifts, really. There's always something involved with the gifts. So that's number four. Number five is they're chameleons, they're kind of one way with one group and one way with another group and one way with this person and another way with another person, because they, whatever color they are with this person, they might be a different color with a different person, because they don't have a sense of self, right? Because they're a narcissist. So that's number five. Number six, this is actually another little sore spot for me, because this was something I had to deal with in my business setting kind of situation. Anyway, they definitely take credit for your ideas. Yep, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Did not like that, but they do that. They definitely like to take credit for your ideas, because they don't have any ideas of their own. Yes, because, they are energy vampires. That's part of what they do. They suck the energy out of you. And if you know this to be true, give me an energy vampires in the comments below. Come on, say it with me. Energy vampires. Yes, they are. All right. And number seven, this is another little catchy little tune that the coverts like to play. This is another little strange behavior of theirs, which is they act like they're strong. I'm so strong. I'm so good. But then they also like to play the victim. Very strange, very weird. They want to play like they're strong, they're so good, but then they also, oh, they played me. I can't believe they did that to me. I'm so weak. The whole passive aggressive thing, part of the whole covert thing. I'm so nice, but I'm also, like, again, knives under me, so warm over here, but there's ice in my blood. Yes, indeed. So anyway, those are the 7 top strange behaviors of covert narcissists. The one that I personally detest the most because I've had to deal with them. Now, let's talk about this covert, passive aggressive narcissist. I never even heard of such a thing until I actually became I would say victim, target, survivor. I prefer survivor actually, but initially you are their target and then you kind of become their victim. And then hopefully you can escape and become a survivor and live to talk about it. And, for me, having been a seasoned attorney, I'm a very successful attorney. I've been recognized by any, valid, credible source that recognizes accomplishments of attorneys. I've been a divorce attorney for 20 years or more. And very, what I would say, confident, tough. So I wouldn't have expected to have become the target, victim, survivor of a covert narcissist, but I actually have two of them that I had to get rid of fairly recently in my life. And so while I have programs on how to negotiate with a narcissist, I've had to make sure that I incorporate in there how to deal with a covert passive aggressive narcissist, because these are the most stealth ones. These are the most toxic in a lot of ways because they don't look like narcissists. So there's really 3 types of narcissists. The first one would be your grandiose narcissist. That's your run-of-the-mill narcissist, the one that we're used to seeing, the kind that, most people think of when they think of narcissists, the one that goes around telling everybody how great they are, has no problem boasting about their accomplishments or thinking that they're the best one, and they tell everybody and everybody knows that that's what they think. And that's kind of your run-of-the-mill normal narcissist. And then there is what we call the malignant narcissist, which is kind of like the grandiose narcissist, but like on steroids. It's kind of like the Darth Vader of narcissists. Those are the ones that have a propensity for stalking or violence or threats of violence, things like that, to intimidate people into doing what they want. I mean, all narcissists have zero sense of self. They're like the Easter chocolate bunny that is totally hollow inside. That's what's going on with the narcissist. They have no inner sense of self. They have no inner self-esteem or self-worth. They actually are the most insecure of all people in the world. And so those of us who are empaths, they are attracted to narcissists and narcissists are attracted to them. It's this crazy sort of symbiotic, very lethal attraction that both have for each other, because empaths naturally want to help people, and they see that narcissists have that inner sense of insecurity, that deep sense of insecurity. And narcissists naturally want to be with people that have qualities that they wish that they had, or that they want other people to think that they have, or that they admire in some way, something like that. And so they do gravitate toward each other. And with covert passive aggressive narcissists, it's even worse, because covert passive aggressive narcissists are actually the ones that will straight out tell you that they have difficulty with depression or you know, or feeling good about themselves. They'll straight up say that. They often appear to be victims of things. They want to appear to be victims. A lot of times they have a lot of illnesses, or they're sick, so that people feel sorry for them. You know, the world just isn't fair, doesn't give them what they want or whatever. But they also appear to be very charming, very nice, like the nicest people in the world. A really huge eye-opening book for me was this book right here by Debbie Mirza. It's called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, I would definitely make sure to grab it. I will put a link to the book below here in my notes on the video. Definitely check it out. It was very eye-opening for me. And when I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, these people that have been in my life, it could be a book written about them. Like they are it exactly. So I want to read for you, because I don't have the list memorized. So I just want to read for you some of the characteristics that that Debbie Mirza says that covert passive aggressive narcissists have. They do not have a strong sense of self. They have silent rage, lying, hoovering, constant criticism, jealousy. They project their own issues onto you. Their words don't match their actions. They are emotionally disconnected. They have flying monkeys, which are, it's like a triangulation move to try to get people in your world to line up against them or with them against you. And they get them to believe all their lies about how horrible you are. Or they might just get them on their side to think that they're a wonderful person. So therefore, if you cross this person, then there definitely must be something wrong with you because they're so nice. They take credit for your ideas. They withhold praise and recognition. They sabotage birthdays, holidays, vacations, and meaningful dates. They belittle you, teach you lessons. They're self-focused, emotionally immature, always strings attached, use people. They're dizzying conversationalists, so, you know, easy to get sucked in. They create drama. They don't make love. They take it. They're not protective. They create stories in their head. They have no desire to actually know you. They have no interest in making this a great relationship. They use control and manipulation. So those are definitely all characteristics that I saw in the two covert passive aggressive narcissists that I had to deal with in my life. I'm sure that I have others, but those are the two that actually became fixated with me and doing things, you know, to hurt me. And what's interesting is that they have this kind of weird fixation, like they absolutely idolize you in a lot of ways, but then they also are trying to hurt you and do passive aggressive things to you. It's a very strange world of insanity that, you know, you just got to get yourself out of as fast as possible if you can. And if you can't, you definitely want to create boundaries that are really, really strict, because, you know, these people are actually narcissists. All narcissists don't respect boundaries. You're supposed to respect theirs. They don't have to respect yours. That's how that goes. There are 3 phases to a relationship with a covert passive aggressive narcissist or any narcissist. And that is the love bombing phase, where they start off with how great you are. You're so beautiful. Everything is amazing. They line themselves up to look like they're so perfect for you. They want you to think that they're incredible in the beginning, that everything about them is just perfect, where you're thinking, wow, is this person even real? This is amazing. And then the next phase is where they start to devalue you. And with a passive aggressive narcissist, this is where you start to see these little things, and they're just small enough. They're so good at doing these little things that you know are not right, and you know are meant to do something to you. But the rest of the world, if you tell them about it, they would go, well, that doesn't seem so bad. I don't know. Maybe it was a mistake. Oh, that seems inadvertent, because they're so nice. So it has to be an error. Or they gaslight you, but it's in very, very subtle ways, where they'll say, they'll do something completely contrary to what you agreed on, or to what you would think that they should do, or whatever. And when you call them out on it, they go, oh, we had that conversation. You agreed to that. And you never had that conversation. Or they say something like, I thought you said that was okay, or something like that. And you know that just never happened. And so they try to make you think that you're crazy. But when you tell other people about it, they go, oh, that must have been inadvertent. One of the things that I've seen with covert passive aggressive narcissists is like with money, where money will end up being deposited into the wrong account, and they go, oh, I didn't realize I did that, I'll correct it. And then they never do. And so then you end up having to go back to ask them about it. But then when you tell people about it, they go, well, it seems inadvertent, because the person is so nice and they're such a good person. They would never do anything like take money, things like that. And, so it goes on and on. And so during the devalue phase, you're getting this little drip, drip, drip on your head of things that are starting to make you think you're crazy, because the whole rest of the world does think that this person is so nice. One of the examples that Debbie Mirza gives in her book is about a husband who would go into a Starbucks or something and get himself a coffee, and he would ask the wife if she wanted anything, and she would always say yes, and she would tell him what she wanted. And he would always come back out and say, oh, I forgot to get yours, when she would bring it up. And then he wouldn't even go back in to get it. Like, he would just drive away. Little things like that are just like, well, do you really break up a relationship over that? Well, it doesn't seem like so bad. Maybe I'm just being selfish, things like that. And especially if you're an empath, which I said they gravitate toward, you're going to want to be as giving as possible. And narcissists just want to take as much as possible. So, and remember, to a narcissist, your only value is whatever value you bring to them, because they need an endless amount of what we call narcissist supply. And supply is whatever thing of value you can bring to them. It might be compliments, it might be making them look good, it might be helping them with all of their problems, it may be financial gain, it may be that just being associated with you gives them a higher boost in status, or whatever. So but if you take away that value from the narcissist, then your value is gone as well. And in fact, when you try to end a relationship with a narcissist who, whether it's a romantic relationship, a business relationship, or, friend, neighbor, employer, whatever, they're going to want to get you first, especially because you may know things about them that actually would make them vulnerable. So they're going to make a lot of noise and go absolutely berserk. So you got to be ready for that, because they're going to want to make everybody else think that you're the bad one for leaving. Even if they leave you, to be honest, they don't want to be seen as, oh, I left them because I'm a bad person, or I wanted to be with somebody else. They've got to make it about you. And so you've got to steel yourself. You got to be ready that whatever you say, do, whatever is going to be manipulated. They're going to lie, cheat. In my program on how to negotiate with a narcissist, I actually have a list of 30 things that they will do. And I actually break them out by the type of narcissist and the types of behavior they do in a breakup. But just know that you're going to be in for it. But remember that this is actually the most fragile personality. They're like the bully on the playground that when you fight back, they run away. So you just got to find that point and create enough strategy and leverage to get them to the point where they will be willing to back down and run away and just find somebody else, because it's not worth their trouble to be in your space anymore. And you're not giving them any value. So plus, if you're going to make them look bad, then, it's time to move on as far as they're concerned. Now, if you're dealing with that pesky narcissist who's probably quite the pain in the neck in your life, then here's what you need to be looking for, because anybody who either has narcissistic personality disorder or just narcissistic traits or tendencies, they tend to employ the same types of tricks to try to manipulate people into controlling them. It really doesn't matter if they are a covert narcissist or an overt narcissist, they still use the same kinds of tricks. So here are the things that you should be looking for. So number one is shaming and belittling. This is a very, very classic narcissistic trait, because remember that narcissists inside are actually the most insecure. They have absolutely no self-esteem. So they look for it all externally. And so they're looking for people to, of course, make them look good and tell them how wonderful they are. But in that process, they also need to try to make everybody else look worse, because they feel like that's the only way that they're going to end up looking better. So they shame you, they belittle you, they do it both in public and in private. And sometimes they'll do it under the guise of, oh, I'm only joking, or can't you take a joke, or I'm just trying to help you. They use these hurtful words, and you rely on the fact that maybe one day you will be good enough. But trust me, you are already good enough. Number two thing that they do is try to gather a team. They gather a team against you. It's also called triangulation. And here is where they're going to try to go to the people that they especially think that you think a lot of, or that you might go to for your own advice or help. And they immediately try to get that person on their side. So they try to make themselves look good. They try to make you look bad. They try to gather this whole army of people to make it seem like the whole world is against you. And therefore, if you go against this narcissist, then you're really torpedoing yourself, because all these people are going to think badly of you too, because all these people love this particular person. So triangulation, or trying to gather people against you, is a very typical thing that narcissists do. So the third thing that narcissists do is they try to minimize or undervalue you. And this can often be very, very confusing, because what narcissists typically do is they start off telling you how amazing you are, how wonderful you are, how beautiful you are, how smart you are, how gorgeous you are, how handsome you are, whatever. And so you're sucked in to this, feeling that this person thinks that you're the most amazing thing that ever walked the earth. And so what happens is you're constantly trying to find that place again. Like, how did I have that? How can I get back to that? Because what happens is the relationship starts to erode, and they start to belittle you. They start to say, it looks like you're putting on weight, or maybe you're not that smart, or, they just start to undervalue you. So like, let's say you've done a lot for that person, and they'll minimize your contributions or the things that you've done that make it seem like it's not that big of a deal, or they could have done it themselves. something like that. So it just never feels like you can catch back up to whoever that person was that loved you or thought you were amazing back in the beginning. Are you recognizing these traits so far? If you are, give me an amen in the comments. Okay, so the fourth thing that they do is they try to play the victim. And this can also feel confusing because they start off seeming like so strong and that they can really take care of themselves, but then they'll start to say things to make it seem like you're doing something to them. Like, you know, see, I can never get through to you. You never understand me, you know, things like that. And this is especially something that covert narcissists do. And I have a whole video on covert narcissism in relationships, and I will post a link to that below. You're definitely going to want to check that out if you think that you're dealing with a covert narcissist. But remember that playing the victim, they're always sicker than you. They always have more on them than you do. They're always put upon. And oftentimes you're the one who's doing it, or it's your fault for not doing enough or doing too much or whatever. But they are always the victim in whatever it is. Okay, the fifth thing that they do is gaslighting. And what gaslighting is, if you don't know, I know this is one of those terms that gets thrown around quite a lot, is that they say things or do things to make you think that you were crazy. So as I explained in my video on covert narcissism, it came from a movie, and the husband was blowing out these gaslights, and the wife would say, oh, wasn't that lamp just lit? And he would say, no, it wasn't. And so he was trying to make her crazy. So that's where the term comes from. And so what narcissists will do is they'll say things to you like, oh, we discussed that and you agreed. Or we had that conversation. I'm sorry, there must have been a misunderstanding on your part. And you know that there was never a misunderstanding, or you didn't have that conversation. But sometimes when people are saying that to you over and over again so many times, you really do start to question your own sanity, which is exactly what they want you to do, because the narcissist wants you to be fully reliant on that person for your self-worth, for your self-esteem, for everything, so that they have total control over you. Okay, the sixth thing that they do is controlling behavior. So, you know, if you're in a relationship with this person, they usually want to be the one to pay the bills, or they want to control all of the aspects of everything, how things look in your home, how the bookshelves are organized, you know, just really everything. They might want to control what you wear, something like that, or who you're seeing, everything about you. And the reason why they do that is going back to the gaslighting conversation, and that is that they want total control over you and over everything that you're doing, so that you are completely reliant on them for all of your needs and all of your self-esteem, which of course they're going to strip from you. And so you end up feeling like you're losing yourself in these relationships. And the last thing they do, and remember, this is just a menu of the main things they do. There may be others, but these are the main things that narcissists do to try to manipulate people. The last thing, number 7, is the project and deflect. So in other words, basically, they're going to blame you for all of their own behavior, because they have to remain flawless, and they're never wrong. So, you know, if you ended up going the wrong way in the car, then it's definitely your fault. If too much money was spent that month, then that was your fault too. Or if you're working with this person and a project didn't get done on time, then that was your fault. Even if it was their fault because they didn't give it to you on time or whatever, they'll never see that. Narcissists generally don't apologize, and they never take responsibility for their actions. So they're going to project it onto you so that you can be the one that's the target, and you're the problem, and you're the one that's triggering their anger. And so, and it's honestly, it's like a black hole that you will never fill, because you're always going to be the problem, and they're always going to have problems. So you're constantly trying to catch up to fix things that are never going to be fixed. There's never going to be an end to what needs to be fixed, or or in you or for them. So if you are dealing with a narcissist, first of all, I'm sorry. I've been there too. It totally sucks. And the thing that I really need to tell you, and I've dealt with them in my own personal life, in business and in other areas, and also as an attorney, I've represented them. I've had them on the other side. So I understand this personality very, very well. And the thing that I have to tell you is you have to take appropriate measures to try to get them out of your life, because it's going to start affecting your health, not only your mental health, but your physical health as well. I mean, it's so difficult to get over having this person in your life. It's almost like having PTSD. So, I mean, your cortisol levels go up, you get ulcers, heart attacks, all kinds of things can happen to you. So you've got to start figuring out a way to get this person out of your life. So, you know, whether it's going to be physical barriers, whether it's a divorce, whether it's, you know, find a different job or whatever it is that you need to do. But I would try to work this person out of your life, whether it's distant, you know, maybe you limit the communication in a certain way. Maybe you create barriers that you need to in order to protect yourself. But do what you need to do to protect yourself from this person.
All right, so you are getting ready to deal with a narcissist, and you know, you're in the middle of drama, trauma, and chaos for sure. And you can't even think straight half the time because you're under siege. That's what happens when you go into the discard phase of a narcissistic relationship. Remember, there's the love bombing, then there's the devaluing, then there's the discarding. And if you want to know more about those three phases, definitely check out my videos on each one of those topics. But when you're in that discard phase, that's when you start to see the birth of the smear campaign, and all these things are coming at you at once. And when you are in that phase, the narcissist basically wants to take you down. They want to get you before you get them. So you're going to start to see them doing things. They're going to start lining up their flying monkeys. They're going to, you know, meaning these third parties, what flying monkeys are, was a reference to the Wizard of Oz. And the Wicked Witch had her flying monkeys, and these people who just sort of like sat on the side of the evil person and just kind of went along and didn't really realize what was going on. And that's what flying monkeys actually really are. I mean, they're people that the narcissist is lined up to be on their side or against you. And in their perfect world, both, right? On their side and against you, which is perfect for them. And they want you to feel like you are ganged up on. They want you to feel like you are isolated, that you are out of it, that you're excluded, that there's nothing more for you, because they want you to be suffering. I've actually had somebody who said, you know, I think that he wants me to kill myself. That's not the case, actually, because if you did that, then they wouldn't have any more narcissistic supply. What they really want is to just make you miserable. They get off on that. It's totally sick. I mean, that's what it is for them. They actually kind of get a high out of making people miserable. And that's why they drag out litigation. That's why the negotiation process takes so long. You know, I have a private Facebook group, which, by the way, you are certainly welcome to join. It's called Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And I did a survey in there and asked people, how long did your litigation take? How much did it cost you? And do you know that a huge percentage of people said it cost more than $100,000 and it took more than 3 years? Why do you think that is? Because you are dealing with a narcissist in negotiation at that point. And what's driving them? It's not to come to a nice resolution. It's not even to win. No. Newsflash for you. A narcissist is not in it just to win. They are in it to make you miserable, to devalue you, to squash you, to hurt you before you hurt them, to make sure that everybody knows that whatever happened with the relationship was your fault and that they're the perfect ones and that you're the villain. They might even call you the narcissist. You never know, but that's what's going on. So when you are in this entire process of negotiation, what are some signs of malicious intent? One of the very first big, huge, honking red, arrows should be that they constantly move the goalposts. And why do they constantly move goalposts? Well, if you want to know more about that, you should definitely check out my video on why narcissists constantly move goalposts. But why do they do that? They do that because they enjoy the process of making you squirm, manipulating you, intimidating you, scaring you, dragging it out. And so what does moving the goalposts mean? It means that you will get some kind of an offer from them. And even if you go back and you say, I'll take exactly your offer, word for word, every single thing that you put in your offer, I accept. They'll come back with, sorry, that's no longer available. Or it's available, but I'm adding this. Or I'm taking away that. And why do they do that? They do that because it drives you crazy, because it allows them to continue to lead you around by the nose. It's like a little ring in your nose that they're leading you around by. They love it. And they love seeing you squirm. And they love asserting that control over you. So that's a huge red flag that you're dealing with someone who has malicious intent, is constantly moving the goalposts. And if you think that what they're doing is so sick, give me a so sick in the comments. The second big red flag that you know that you're dealing with somebody who has malicious intent in a negotiation is you see these ultimatums like right from the beginning. I just recently had this. I was representing a woman in a divorce, and her very malignant narcissistic husband was coming in to negotiate. We had a mediation set up, and he comes in and he starts right off with, I want my dogs back. Now, these dogs that he wasn't taking care of. They were starving, and his adult daughter went and got the dogs and brought them to her house and refused to give them to him. This wasn't even anything that my client had anything to do with, other than the fact that she's on better terms with the daughter than he is. And he starts off the mediation saying, I'm not doing anything today until I get my dogs back. I want the dogs. Go get the dogs. Go bring them to me. And everybody's supposed to scatter around and do exactly what he wants. He really was trying to show the world, everybody there, that he's in charge, that this is how this is going to go. I'm in charge of the day. And so he picked something that was quite ridiculous and made everybody squirm about it. And here's the mediator over talking to us and saying, what can you do about the dogs? And my client's on the phone with the daughter. Can you get the dogs? Can you do something with the dogs? And the daughter's like, I'm not giving up the dogs. So here we spent the first hour and a half of the mediation not even talking about anything that has to do with the divorce. There's a very huge red flag of somebody who had malicious intent. His intent was to control. His intent was not to come to a peaceful and reasonable resolution of that case. So that's another huge red flag, is that you see these ultimatums happening right away. And a third red flag that somebody has malicious intent is that they're not actually coming to the table. They're not trying to mediate at all. They just are constantly dragging out the case, more discovery, sending out motions, doing all these things, but you can't get them to actually come to the table and have a conversation with you about resolving the case or the issue, whatever it is. You can't what is it that you want? They don't give you an offer. They just completely avoid the entire conversation. There's another example of malicious intent.
Okay, so let's talk about gaslighting. What is gaslighting anyway? Well, gaslighting is something that all narcissists use. It is a really disgusting way of getting someone to just completely doubt their reality. It's a way to destabilize people, especially in negotiating. And that's what I talk about. That's what I teach people how to do. I've seen people be destabilized in negotiating. What happens is they just start to question their own mind. So the way I've seen it used in a number of different ways, but basically it's, we talked about that. Don't you remember? I don't remember talking about that. Or they take threads of things and they say that happened this way or that way, and it didn't really quite happen that way or this way. And they kind of deconstructed and reconstructed it in a different way. And so you just start to question your own mind. And it actually came from a movie and then also a play from the 30s or 40s, and was actually called Gaslight. And the husband was trying to get the wife to think that she was crazy. So he would blow out these gas lights and she would say, "Wasn't that just lit?" And he would say, "No, it wasn't." That's how that term actually came about, because he was actually trying to think she was crazy. So I've actually had it happen to me a number of times in various relationships with covert narcissists, my actual least favorite, because I've had to deal with covert narcissists myself. So what are the hidden signs of gaslighting? Well, so what they will do is they'll say something like, "Oh my goodness, you're so sensitive. You're so overly dramatic." Basically just trying to make somebody feel like they have no right to feel that way. And they kind of just sort of weave it in a way that just sort of "Oh, where did that come from?" It is a way of gaslighting. It's just sort of makes you sort of question "Oh, where did that come from?" It's like a little poke, and it's a little way to just sort of make somebody feel like they have no right to feel that way. Covert, it's a really little way of something that covert narcissists definitely use. And with covert narcissists, they always have this way of using plausible deniabilities, so that if anybody ever questions it, it's it just seems what? I didn't say anything. It doesn't seem that bad. It doesn't say, "Oh, they seem so nice." Nothing ever seems out of place. No hair ever seems out of place. Nothing ever seems bad. But the person themselves are kind of questioning what's going on. Another one is projection and deflection. You bring something up and then they just sort of change the subject. And it's all of a sudden you're not talking about what you wanted to talk about. And so it's a way of sort of putting that person down and letting them know that they don't matter to you, but you just didn't really realize what happened. Or they kind of question the way you brought something up or the tone of the way you brought something up. And so it's a constant sort of way of sort of belittling you. So you never really get to talking about what you wanted to talk about. Your feelings don't matter, or whatever it is that you wanted to bring up never gets talked about. But it's just constantly shifted. But it's because of the way you brought it up, when you brought it up, how you brought it up. It's just constantly projected off into something else, or we'll talk about it later. That's a way of sort of gaslighting you as well. And by the way, I have a whole video on how to gaslight the narcissist, how to flip that script. And you can definitely check that video out if you'd like. And if you are so ready to turn the tables on narcissists, give me a turn the tables in the comments below. I know you are so ready to turn the tables. And then, another way is this never happened or that never happened. They twist the way things happened. They want to record your conversations, but then they accuse you of being petty, which is Very interesting. It's just like you constantly feel like you need to defend yourself when you're dealing with them. And, here's the thing. Narcissists, they all engage in gaslighting. That is just something that happens with narcissists. It is something that they all do. They just can't help themselves. It's just part of their DNA. There's just something off. You just feel it when you are dealing with them, that sort of thing in your chest, or that pit in your gut. It's just always happening. And they do come from this premise that all people are manipulative. That's just how they feel all the time. They feel like they're protecting themselves from being manipulated, because they feel that all people are manipulative. I mean, they come from this place of survival. That's how they are in the world. It's kind of a sad thing. It is, but you can't save them. I know, I see you empaths out there. I know you think that you can, but you can't. Just don't think that you can. Just protect yourself. Do what you need to do to protect yourself. All right. So early red flags of narcissists, early, before they even come near you. I want to make sure that you get like this cone of safety around you. Right. So maybe you've been in a relationship with a narcissist. Maybe you're trying to get out of one right now. And if that's you, if you're trying to get out of one right now, by the way, I have a free ebook that you got to get. It's free Crush My Negotiation Prep Worksheet that you got to get. You just go to crushmydeal.com, free ebook. You can just get that. Just go ahead and grab that. I've had many people win their entire negotiations on it. Just go to crushmydeal.com and get that. But if you are even thinking that you might be in a relationship, these are the early signs. I'm going to give you 6 of them, and you're going to want to stay all the way to the end and see what all 6 of them are. All right. So number 1 is it's a really, really fast moving relationship, really fast moving. They're like right away, it's overwhelming fast. They got to get to it. And you're almost overwhelmed at how quickly they're moving along this relationship. And you don't have a chance to catch your breath. That's how it is. By the way, this is business or personal. I was in a business relationship with a narcissist, and I felt this too in the business relationship. It moves very, very quickly. So that's number 1. Number 2, the second big major red flag of a narcissist is that they'll say things like your soulmates, things like that. They'll start saying things that will make you feel like, wow, where has this person been all of my life? Right away. I mean, they might even say that on the first date, or maybe even before the first date, they'll say things like that. So that's number 2, early red flag that you are in a relationship with a narcissist. Number three, they will say things like their ex is just crazy. They'll start right away with how horrible their ex is and how awful it was with their ex. I mean, they might even say how horrible their ex is with their kids, that they're alienating them with their kids. And it was just an awful, traumatic situation with their ex. That's another massive early red flag that you are in a relationship with a narcissist. If you are with a person that has a great relationship with their ex, that's a good sign. That's actually a good sign. Okay. Conversely, the number 4 early red flag that you are in a relationship with a narcissist is that they love everything that you love. What narcissists do is they study you. They actually study you and they start mirroring you. They actually become you. They start figuring out what it is that you like. And now all of the sudden, they almost want to align with everything that you love so that you almost sort of fall in love with yourself in a way. They're very, very good at reading people. They've been doing this for years. I don't know if many of you have read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, where he talked about it took 10,000 hours to achieve mastery. Well, this is way more than 10,000 hours. These are people who have taken years and years and years to achieve mastery and manipulation since they were children. It's a survival mechanism. And so, what they have done is actually studied people since they were children, and what they needed to do was to survive was look to see what they needed to do to become that person, to become likable. And so they really almost become that person just to get in with them, just to become assimilated, just to get to that next level of commitment. They love everything that you love initially. And I have a whole series of videos on this love bombing, and then they go into devaluing and then the discard phase. And you can check out my videos on the 3 different levels of a narcissistic relationship yourself if you would like. And now, after all of this, your eyes will be wide open. So I want you to put that in the comments right now. Eyes wide open, because that's where you'll be from now on. Eyes wide open. So that's number 4. Number 5, early red sign of narcissism is they'll tell you a sob story to get you to feel sorry for them. You know, maybe they had a horrible childhood. Life hasn't been fair to them. They'll tell you all about how awful things have been for them so that you start to feel sorry for them. Maybe their parents weren't good to them, or something happened to them, because they want you to start to empathize for them, have compassion for them, take care of them, start giving them that narcissistic supply that they're seeking. They're going to look to see if you are going to be a good source of narcissistic supply for them. That's what they're going to be looking for. All right. So they're drawing you in, bringing you in to see and starting to test you to see if you are going to be a good source of value, a good source of supply for them. Another early red flag of narcissism, telling you a sob story. All right. That's number 5. And number 6, the last one, is your gut. Trust your gut. You're going to know, you're going to feel like something is off. You're just going to feel it because it's going to be rushed along. They're going to be moving you along. You're going to be feeling like, oh man, put the brakes on. Something is happening. It's going way too fast. And even when you start to go, you know what, maybe this is moving too fast. I don't know about this. They're going to be going, oh no, this is not moving too fast. We are soulmates. This was meant to be. They're going to be, every time you start to have concerns, they're going to have an answer for you. They're going to be right there, not even giving you that chance to breathe, not giving you that chance to think, because they're going to be right there in your face with the emails, flooding your inbox, showing up wherever all the time. And they're going to know exactly what to say, be perfect at every moment until they lock you in. And that'll be the next level. So let's talk about this gaslighting thing. So narcissists love to use gaslighting. It is a way to make you feel like you're crazy. It is a word that stems from an old movie, which was also apparently a show back in the 30s. And what the premise was is there was a husband who was trying to make the wife feel like she was crazy. So he would blow out these gas lights and she would say, wasn't that just lit? And he would say, no, No, it wasn't. So that's what he did. Apparently, in the end, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, which I haven't even seen it myself, but apparently he she ends up being onto him, which is going to be the outcome for you, whether you're dealing with them in a personal situation or divorce or whatever your situation is. Maybe it's a probate situation, maybe it's a business partner, maybe it's future clients or people that you're having to deal with in any aspect of your life. It really doesn't matter because you're going to see gaslighting if you're dealing with a narcissist. It's one of the things that they love to do. And so let's talk about gaslighting. So, gaslighting, as I mentioned, is a way to make you think that you're crazy. There are many different ways that they use gaslighting. They straight up just lie to your face. They manipulate reality. They project, they deflect, they use other people as their scapegoats, or they just, try to coerce you and pressure you. However, they're using it, it's basically all the same. And they use it if they're covert, they use it if they're overt. It doesn't really matter what kind of narcissist you are looking at. By the way, if you want to know more about the covert passive aggressive narcissist, I have a whole video on that special type of person. Yeah, I had to deal with a couple of them in my own personal life, not as a husband, but people close enough to help me see the light as to what they actually look like, causing lots of drama, trauma, and chaos in my own life. And I know how horrible it is. And this is why I'm on a mission over here. I have a personal crusade, as I'm pretty sure the only lawyer on the planet who actually has a way to negotiate with narcissists. And that's why I have such a personal mission on this. Anyway, let's talk about those 8 gaslighting phrases, shall we? All right. So, number 1 is we discussed that and you agreed. Like they say that they've planned something for the weekend. It happens to be your anniversary weekend and they're going away with the boys. And you're like, you're going away on our anniversary? And he says, yeah, we are. And I already told you that and you agreed to that. And you're like, I never heard about this trip ever. But that's the kind of thing that they do. We discussed that and you agreed. So that's number 1. Number 2 is adding "ha" or "can't you take a joke" to the end of a cruel sentence. Oh, you're just overly sensitive. Oh, can't you just take a joke? Adding "ha" to the end of a sentence does not make it funny. And it doesn't make it less punchy or hurtful or cruel, which they actually know, by the way, but they think that they're adding "ha" to it so that they get to hurt you, but they don't get to be blamed as a hurtful person. It's kind of really weird and screwed up. I know. I'm not making this up. You all know that you've seen this, right? And so give me a right in the comments if you have definitely seen this before so far. All right. Next one, number 3, is changing what you're trying to hold them accountable for. So, you're saying that they were supposed to do the books at the office or something like that. They'll say, oh, but look what I've done. I did all of this stuff. And so they're like moving the target so that they're no longer talking about what they were actually supposed to do. I actually had this with somebody who was supposed to do some work for me, like an outside vendor, and they were supposed to help me accomplish a certain task. And when I was trying to hold them accountable for it, they just started telling me about the other benefits that I received from, not even from them, but like people that they introduced me to. And so therefore, I shouldn't look at the fact that they shouldn't be held accountable for what they were supposed to be doing. I know, really messed up. So the next one is I never did that or said that. You're imagining things. So something that they did or something that they said, they will say that you are imagining. Okay, number 5 is you're way too emotional. So now they're going to take issue with how you're saying it, that you're emotional, you're upset. I don't like your tone. I don't like the way you said that. You are shouting at me. And now you're just talking about that. And again, it's gaslighting to not have to take responsibility. It's about you. It's you're upset, you're emotional, you're shouting. Even if you're not shouting, even if you're like talking like this, you're shouting at them. And so now you're the one who's the problem. So, why they use gaslighting is it's a way to destabilize you, get control over you, and, make you think that you're crazy, and so that you don't see who they really are. You start to question your own mind. You're seriously traumatized, and sometimes, getting over that can be as bad as being deprogrammed if you were in a religious cult or something like that. You have to really reprogram your brain. You have to really change your neuronal patterns. I was actually talking to a client yesterday, and she was saying that she actually went to see Joe Dispenza speak like 5 times in a whole year because of having to reprogram her brain and reprogram her neuronal patterns and all that. And so that's the kind of thing that they do and why they do it. And especially when you're negotiating with them, you want to make sure that you start to see it, because then it will be much easier for you to realize, oh, that's off. I know my tone wasn't bad. I know we didn't discuss that. I know I never agreed to that. And it will give you so much more power when you are negotiating with them. All right. So the next one is you're just insecure, or maybe you're just jealous. You're making too much of things. This is especially if you're in a personal relationship and you're trying to call them out on their behavior, or you catch them, doing something that they shouldn't be. They'll just try to make it seem like you're the one who's, crazy, insecure, jealous, making too much of things or whatever. The next one, number 7, is you're just crazy, or it's your fault. So in other words, if they ended up doing something that they shouldn't have, maybe they cheated on you or something like that, it becomes your fault because you didn't give them enough sex, or something like that. I do have a whole video, by the way, on narcissism and sex and how narcissists do use sex to control you. It's really an extension of how they behave in the rest of their lives and in their world and in their relationships. But it can be especially hurtful and demoralizing. So if you want to check that out, you definitely can. And the last one is that never happened. So, things that happened that happened, and you even have proof that they happened, they will literally, without blinking, say that never happened. I'm often reminded of the George Costanza, where, in Seinfeld, where he was like, it's not a lie if you believe it. And so sometimes I wonder if they actually believe their lies or not. But that is one thing that they do. The key is to understand that this is what they do. It is a way to try to shift your reality and question your own mind. And the key is in starting to look at it, observe it, see it for what it is, almost see it as like a third person, and recognize it when it happens, especially in negotiations, so that you can just hold steady, hold fast, and be able to know what is real and what isn't. And this definitely happens when they move goalposts and they change deals and all that sort of thing too.